Hello everybody and welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer. And guys, the international break is over, and I always find it mad actually that the championship stops over the international break. Of course it makes sense because there's a lot of with the quality of the championship, there's a lot of players that do go on international duty these days especially, but it's just the fact that the championship has 46 games on top of League Cup games, FA Cup games. It just means there's a lot of football for these players, but of course it is a good thing for us, and ultimately I suppose it does make sense as well. But it does mean that this is going to be a very busy period on the build up to Christmas. There's going to be lots of championship football for us to enjoy, and we've got a good line of fixtures returning from the international break. So let's waste no more time and get straight into them. And we actually start off with Rotherham, who take on Leeds. And location-wise, I believe Rotherham's, about 45 minutes away from Leeds. So I've got to be honest, I don't know if there's a bit of an added incentive from Rotherham. Is this something that these guys class as a little bit of a derby? Of course, it's not going to be a close derby for them, but I feel like all the teams up in Yorkshire way, like they have that real oomph when it comes to taking on Leeds. And I think they will need it to try and get a result against Leeds, because this is a Leeds team that really did pick up, didn't they, after before the international break. And I did think that, when they signed the likes of Joel Perreault, I thought at some point this team is really going to click, because he's a striker that will go and get you 20, 25 goals a season. And they've obviously got some other great talent as well. And they'll have those eyes on those two automatic promotion spots, especially before the international break. They took points away from Leicester, and obviously Leicester then went on to lose another game. They're not now a million miles away from those automatic spots either. And I think because of that and the incentive that they have and just that quality that we're starting to see from Leeds, I am going to give it to Leeds, and I'm going to go Leeds 2, Rotherham 0. Let's move on to Swansea, who take on Hull. And Swansea before the international break, well, they weren't in great form, to be honest. Only 1 win in 5. And I don't know with this one. I think it's going to be a difficult game. I think obviously Swansea do have home advantage, but we also started to see the quality that Hull did have. They're one of those teams that I've backed throughout the season. I said at some point with the transfer window that they've had, it's going to take a little bit of time to embed all those players. But especially having an international break, etc., I think there's only a matter of time before we start to see this team with more and more quality and just get better throughout the season. And we started to see that before the international break. So I am going to give this one to Hull. I think they'll get the job done, but I think it won't be a huge scoreline. I'm going to go Swansea 1 goal, Hull 2 in this one. Let's move on to Leicester next, who take on Watford. And earlier on in the video, I did speak and mention Leicester with the fact that before the international break, 2 losses. It's going to raise some questions over this, the Foxes, because before that, they were coasting through the season. People were talking about, is this going to be one of the highest points tallies that we've ever seen in the Championship? Well, they've had a bit of a break now. It probably came at the right time for them. And questions are going to be asked still, though. Are they going to be able to keep up their early momentum? Have they got that quality? I think they do. But at the same time, the Championship is a very difficult league, especially when the form drops. We have seen good teams maybe not start the season so well or not achieve what they wanted to. And one of those teams actually was Watford, who were another team that before the international break did seem to start to get more into the form you'd expect them to, start to pick up a little bit more. And that faith that they actually showed in the manager, which was actually unlike the Watford board, really did start to pay off. Everything probably should suggest that I should go Leicester here, but for some reason I just fancy Watford to get something, so I'm actually going to go Leicester 2, Watford 2 in this one. I'm going to back Watford oddly to get a point. Let's move on to speak about Plymouth next, who take on Sunderland, and it is obviously a difficult game to call this one because Plymouth are the home team. And before the break, Plymouth in the last 2 home games scored 3 in both of those home games, so it really does show that at home that, they've got they've got the ability to put the ball in the back and net a lot more than they have done away from home. But they take on a Sunderland team that are also in good form, 7 points from the last 3 games. And looking at their team, they actually have a real solid defence, the 4th best defence in the league at the moment. I think that's tied 4th. But nonetheless, they've only actually also had 2 draws this season. So with everything being said, I should probably go for a low scoreline here, but I'm actually not going to. I'm going to go for another 2-2 in this one. I think just Plymouth at home, something tells me that they've got goals in them. We know Sunderland have got goals in them. I'm going to fancy a draw. Plymouth will get something out of this 2-2. This is an interesting game, actually. Birmingham next, who take on Sheffield Wednesday. And I had to laugh because, oh my God, what has gone wrong for Birmingham? Well, we know what has gone wrong. It's bringing in Wayne Rooney so far hasn't paid off. But look, after the break, he's had a bit of time to work with the majority of his players. And if there's one game that you could pick, no disrespect to Sheffield Wednesday, it would probably be Sheffield Wednesday, wouldn't it? I mean, this is a team that's only achieved one win all season and actually only, they've got 6 points in total out of how many games have we played now? 16, 17 games. So this is a really good chance at home for Rooney to get off the mark, maybe try and put on an impressive performance. And also, obviously, just try and get some confidence from the fans and also confidence from the whole of the outside football world to show that this guy deserves to be there, because obviously the sacking of Eustace wasn't a popular one with Birmingham fans. It just didn't make sense from an outside point of view. But Sheffield Wednesday themselves, they have their new manager, but regardless, the manager does have a really hard task on his hands. It really does feel that the Sheffield Wednesday team just didn't get the improvement that they should have got when they did go up, and the cash injection. Obviously, we've seen all the fiasco going on with their owners as well, asking even the fans to contribute at times to pay off a tax bill, even if it was done in jest. It's just not a good relationship there at all at the moment, is it? And I think I'm going to give it to Rooney. I think Rooney might get his win here. I don't think it's going to be a big fashionable win, though. I'm going to go Birmingham 1, Sheffield Wednesday 0. Well, let's move on to talking about two teams that will have their eyes now on the playoffs. This is two teams that currently sit 10th and 11th, respectively. But having said that, they're not all far off the playoffs at all. We do know how close the push for the playoffs can be. I think it's only 3-4 points, something like that, is it? But both of these teams sit outside of the playoffs. And both teams have, at times had good periods in the season, but also had not so good periods. I mean, Middlesbrough obviously had an awful start to the season, but have really pushed on and climbed up that table. But Bristol City at the same time do have quality, and they being the home team, this will not be an easy game for Middlesbrough, sorry. This is one of those games where I think both teams do have a chance of winning it, and I couldn't disagree with whatever someone says, as long as the scoreline was pretty close, I guess. But me, myself, I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go Bristol City 1, Middlesbrough 1. Let's move on to speaking about Norwich now, who take on QPR. And I think this is an interesting one because you've got a Norwich team that really are underperforming, but they're taking on a QPR team that obviously aren't having a great start to the season, but do have a new manager that, to be fair, looks good, and I think has brought at least a bit of hope to QPR fans. And obviously, just from an outside point of view, I kind of like what he's doing. Of course, before the break, he managed to at least turn their fortune around a little bit, pulling off 2 draws. But now the focus will be on getting that win for good old Marty. But Norwich, David Wagner, I'm sure that he's probably feeling a little bit under pressure. It's interesting to see that Norwich have also brought in a new sporting director. Of course, he'll be looking to make maybe changes and additions in January, but for the time being, they've got to focus on their current squad, and it's a squad that are shipping way too many goals. And I think that's something that they'll have to solve. But regardless, I do think they will probably have a bit too much for this QPR team. I am impressed with the QPR new manager, though, but I'm going to stick to the scoreline I thought in my head. I'm going to go Norwich 3, QPR 1 in this one. But I am excited to see what this new QPR manager can do. Impressed with what I've seen so far. Let's move on now to speaking about Stoke, who take on Blackburn. And again, like a lot of championship games, another tough one to call. Two teams for me that have shown class at times this season, but have also, again, like I mentioned earlier on the video, one of these two teams that have both shown class, but at times also both not look so good at times. It's for these kind of teams, it's really at the point of the season now where you've got to show that class all the time. You've got to find that consistency and get a good run of results, because there's a lot of teams in the middle of that pack that are really capable of getting higher up the table and really pushing on. But you have to have that consistency, and that's really the battle of the Championship, isn't it? Especially when the games come quick and fast, and you maybe haven't got that much time to reflect on results, make changes, or just really I suppose adapt and change your fortunes. But these are two teams for me that do have quality within their team. Of obviously, Stoke, for me, I've always said they should be right up there with the signings that they've got and the squad that they've got, but so far haven't been able to manage that, but have at least been climbing a little bit up the table. It's actually 12th versus 14th, this one, isn't it? And what's amazing to say about that is they actually are only 4-5 points off 6th in the table. Again, another one like a lot of games that could go either way, but I'm going to marginally back the home team. I'm going to go Stoke 2, Blackburn 1. Guys, if you can do me a favour right now and just hit that like button, and please do subscribe and maybe even add a comment. Honestly, when we're this size channel, everything you can do to help us honestly does mean a lot. It honestly does help our videos get pushed out, because YouTube really does not help us at all. So honestly, even if you can just add a like to this video, it would be really much appreciated. And if you've not done so already, please do subscribe to the channel as well. Let's move on, speaking about Preston next, to take on Cardiff. And of course, it was a Preston team that brought back their form before the international break, pulling off 2 back-to-back wins and maybe instilling a little bit more confidence back into their fans and obviously themselves, because it was a bit of a horrid run of form, wasn't it? Before that, they really had shown that they were belonging near the top of the table, and it'd be interesting to see if they can get their way back up and safely into the playoff positions, and maybe even pushing onwards, because we have seen that class from Preston at times, but they did go on a bit of a horrible run of form and a bit uncharacteristic as well with that Preston team. They take on a very good Cardiff team though, and a Cardiff team that have shown good quality at times this season, and they're going to be a hard team to break down. Having said that, with Preston being the home team, I'm going to give it to Preston, and I'm going to go Preston 2, Cardiff 0 in this one. Let's move on, speaking about Ipswich Town now, who take on West Bromwich Albion. And West Brom at the moment, I think do they currently sit in 6th? Well, it's gone from my memory, but they're in and around that playoffs. It might be 6th or 7th position, and they really were running into a good run of form before the international break. But they take on an Ipswich team that have the ability, if results go their way, to sit top of the table by the end of this week's fixtures. And it's an Ipswich Town team that have really impressed and have looked good this season, have got a lot of quality. They're gunning for back-to-back promotions. They're on the charge for it. And I think the losses that Leicester picked up will really give them even more might to go after that challenge, because it is a really impressive challenge if they do pull it off. But from what we've seen so far, they've definitely got that quality. But West Brom might be able to cause them some problems in this one. It's going to be a bit of a difficult game, isn't it, this? Guys, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I might have got these guys. I'm sorry if I have, but I'm not sure if Albion are. I believe Albion are actually the home team in this one. So I think I've got the pictures the wrong way around. I do apologise for that. But regardless of that, I am going to go Ipswich to win. And I'm going to go 3-1 in this fixture. Let's move on, speaking about Huddersfield, who take on Southampton next. And, well, I've got to be honest, guys. I can only see this going one way. I'm not going to waste too much time in this one. I think Saints get the win. I think they'll have too much for Huddersfield. And I'm going to go Saints 3, Huddersfield 0. Next up, it's Millwall, who take on Coventry. And, well, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's two teams that just haven't really hit the heights that they did last season. Obviously, Millwall narrowly missing off by the playoffs, and Coventry narrowly missing off those promotion spots, but because, well, they got to the playoff final, didn't they? Of course, but neither team really looked like being able to reach those heights this season. And for both fan bases, have been a bit of a disappointing season, really. So currently sat in, I think it's 15th and 20th at the moment. I mean, look, teams have come back from those depths. Nottingham Forest a couple of years ago and really ended up, going up in the end. But these two teams, from what I've seen so far, don't look to be doing that. And I'm going to go for a Millwall win in this one, especially with them being, I think them being the home team has pushed that. I'm going to go Millwall 1, Coventry City 0. Guys, that is the predictions for this week. If you have enjoyed them, please do me a massive favour, hit that like button, get your comments down below as well. Let me know your score predictions, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Have a good weekend or a good rest of your week too. Take care. Goodbye.